Pomme Pote recette du monde, la plus fruitée des évasions.
Nothing like reading some comments first thing in the morning. Oh, this one looks interesting.
Food theory idea. How long could you survive in a locked supermarket just using the food in there?
Huh, that one's really good. I'll have to think about it. Yeah, that is a pretty good question. Hello, Internet! Welcome to Food Theory, the show you can still safely consume well past its expiration date. Theorists, I just want to start off by saying how much I love the theory ideas you submit, especially when they result in episodes like the one today. But, as I soon learned, answers like these are not easy to come by, friends. I mean, I originated pixel measurements. I have been finding numbers where numbers don't exist for a decade now. But grocery store survival may just be one of the trickiest challenges that I've faced in the last 10 years of making YouTube videos. For one thing, we're dealing with a lot of food products here. See, each distinct product in a grocery store gets assigned an SKU, or stock keeping unit. The average grocery store has an SKU count of about 33,000. That is 33,000 different product offerings. And that's not even taking into account the multiples of each item that the store has in its inventory, which means that even an average-sized grocery store likely has hundreds of thousands of items on its shelves. But how long can those items actually sustain a human being? In order to answer that, we'll need to go a step beyond counting the number of items and actually quantify the amount of food in a grocery store. After all, not every item in a grocery store is edible, and those that are edible have drastically different nutritional values. Plus, there's an added layer of complexity that has to be taken into account here: spoilage. This is actually one of our biggest factors because it's not as though our hypothetical person trapped inside the grocery store can just eat millions and millions of calories on day one before anything spoils and then coast off a body fat for the next 50 years. Sadly, the human stomach can only hold so much. This is coming from experience. Test those limits each and every time I step foot inside a cheesecake factory. So this means that our hypothetical person, who I'm gonna call Evan in honor of today's commenter, is gonna have to employ an actual strategy to maximize the food going into his stomach and minimize the amount of food that's going to spoil. Theorists, today's prompt is an absolute beast that has a lot of moving parts, so that's what's gonna make it so fun to answer. Hope you've all worked up an appetite for knowledge, that is, because today we're sinking our teeth into supermarket survival. For today's purposes, we're gonna quantify food in terms of calories. The FDA uses 2,000 calories per day as a general guide for nutrition advice, though they're also quick to admit that this is an oversimplification and there's really no one-size-fits-all number for caloric intake. But for this hypothetical exercise, it's gonna have to do the trick. We're also gonna assume that Evan is locked inside an average-sized grocery store, which these days is about 38,000 square feet according to Progressive Grocer. And that's actually fantastic news for us because one of our food theory field researchers, Luke, just so happens to live up the street from a grocery store exactly that size. See, today's episode is gonna require some good old-fashioned elbow grease, friends. This is a very specific question that we're attempting to answer, and the very specific inventory information that we need isn't publicly available knowledge. In order to get that info, we have no choice but to count the calories of grocery store items manually. And if that sounds like a ridiculous amount of work, yes. But this is food theory, people. If we're not gonna answer the question that one person was curious about in the comments, and who else will? Finally, we need to make a couple of assumptions about Evan's circumstances. We're gonna actually assume that the power's out in Evan's post-apocalyptic survival scenario. That means no ovens, no refrigerators, and no freezers. We'll also assume that he has no running water. Why are we making things so hard on poor Evan? Well, because our answer becomes more useful that way. If we determine that Evan can live out his entire natural lifespan inside a worst-case scenario grocery store with no utilities, then we know that he can also live a full lifespan inside a grocery store where water is easy to come by, and the shelf life of many foods can be extended using refrigeration. So, with all that housekeeping out of the way, the time has finally come to determine Evan's fate. How long is the maximum amount of time that one person can survive inside of a grocery store? Well, let's talk about that crucial first day. Me, I see it playing out a little something like this. Disheveled, Evan stumbles into a strikingly average-sized grocery store, in this case called Stater Brothers, but it could be interchangeable for any around the US. He frantically locks the doors behind him. Outside, some super intense doomsday scenario is raging on. I'm thinking aliens, aliens, zombies, alien zombies. You know, the works. The only other person with a key to the store is also the person with a key to Evan's heart, his true love, Theorista. Together they swore that if they were ever separated amid the chaos, they would rendezvous here, at the Stater Brothers, where they started their love in the frozen food aisle. For us, because one of our food theory his entire natural lifespan inside a worst-case scenario grocery store with no